So I'm going to show you how to make the cover image for your Weebly portfolio for your Elements and Principles page. So go through your images that you shot, figure out which is the best one to use for a cover image. It should be something that maybe has some simple areas, something that will work with text. First thing you're going to do is click on your crop tool. Up at the top, you want to make sure you click on width by height by resolution. So we're going to change that to 11 by 5 by 300 pixels. Okay, and then you can, of course, move this around, crop this until you get the look you like. If you do have a horizon line in your image, you want to make sure that it's straight, so you can use that straighten tool where you just sort of rotate, or you can also use this straighten tool. So it's up to you. Okay. When it looks good to you, maybe I want the little moon in there too, actually. Let's do it this way. Okay, you can either hit enter or the check mark there. Go view fit on screen. Okay, so this is my image. It's actually not a great image, but for right now it works. You can, of course, go to your adjustment layers here where you can change the levels or the hue and saturation, play around with it till you get it to look the way you want. It might make sense to make your image black and white, and then your text could be in a interesting color. So it's totally up to you. Okay, so once you're done with that, you will click on the text tool, and when you click and drag, you create a text box, and that will automatically create a new text layer. So we're going to you guys are going to come up with a cool name for the title of your portfolio. Okay, and then I'm going to create another text layer by just clicking and adding, and I might just do like by. Okay, now a couple things going on here. This color is horrendous based on the rest of my image, so I will obviously need to change color. I will need to change the font size or maybe the font style. Okay, so a couple things to consider when choosing your font. You want to come up with some cool pairings. Okay, so maybe your main font for your title is sort of script and decorative, and then you pick a simple sans serif font for your name. It creates a nice contrast and also balance. Also, if something is smaller, it will be easier to read if it's in a simpler font, so your name will probably be the smaller of the two items. So these are just some examples of what you could do with how you handle your different fonts. Okay. Here's another example. Tall and skinny with a pretty thick script. Okay. So this is totally up to you. You will have a look for your portfolio. Your images will sort of have a style to them, and the fonts that you choose should represent that. The best site, one of my favorite sites to use, is dafont.com. Okay. You can get these really great free fonts. You download them. Very easy to use. So they have all these different categories here. If you wanted to try something really decorative and scripty for your title, you could do that. So let's pretend I like this one. And there's a lot of them. Okay. One thing you can do is type in your text here. So let's just say, the title of your portfolio is My Portfolio. You could change it to show, 100 fonts, and then hit submit. And now it'll actually say the words that you want in that font. This is particularly important when you're looking at your name. You want to make sure all of the letters in your name look good together. Okay, so definitely try that when you're looking. Okay, so I'm going to go with this one. So you just click on download. Okay, and then you're going to see this little thing pop up here as it's downloading. And then you can click on open. And it's going to expand the zip file. Okay, and then now this is in my downloads folder. And you want to click on the TTF file, that's the TrueType file. Double click on that. It's going to open it up here, and then you get this little option to install the font. So really easy. It'll save it in your downloads folder. You just open it up, make sure you click on the TTF file, and then click install. And then there you have it. So what is this one called? Marguerite. Okay. So now that that's installed, I can go ahead and I'm going to click back on my title layer. I can click over here. These are your fonts. I'm going to type in the beginning of the word. There we go, Marguerite. Okay. Over here, I have all kinds of options to change the color of the font. Maybe I'll try white. Okay. I can click on my move tool and scooch it over. Or maybe I want to have it sitting right on that horizon line, you know. Depends on what objects are in your photo, you know, and what's important. So I might click back here. Maybe I'll change this to white also. And maybe I'll go with a simple, let's do a typewriter font, but I need to make this smaller. Right, and if something's not showing up, you can just click, nope, not there, sorry. If you're, make sure you're in the text tool, and you can change the size of your text box if something's not showing up in there. So I'm going to click on my move tool, and maybe I'll put my name down here. And then as you see, as I'm moving around these text boxes, you get these pink lines that show up that sort of tell you what they're aligned to. Okay, so if you click on the title of my portfolio right now, if you click on that paragraph, it's centered. Maybe if you're going to have it on the left-hand side, click on left align. I'm going to do the same thing for my name. And then that way, I will know the other text box aligned. Okay, so under character, you can change, I could change this to condensed or to condensed bold. You know, depending on the font and the font family, you're going to have some different options here. I could just make it bold because it seems a little bit light, right? You don't need, this is the spacing between the lines. You don't need to worry about that. You can set it to auto, but if you only have one line of text, you don't need to worry about that. This will change the spacing between your letters. Okay, so I'm going to actually click here so you can see it better. So if I want to increase the spacing between my letters, okay, it'll stretch out. It won't stretch the letters, it will stretch the spacing between the letters. So that's 200. It stretches it so much that it actually has to go on a separate line. You could also condense them if you want your letters to be a little bit closer together. Okay. So that's the tracking. That's what that's called. You can also change the height, the vertical scale or the horizontal scale. This would actually just stretch them out. So if I said, let's say, I'll do 200 so it's obvious. Okay, so that stretches the letters. All right. So I'm going to go back to 100 on that. And I'm going to go back to 0 on this because I think I like how that looks. Oops. Okay. So let's say I really like that. You can do some different effects to your layer. So I could actually just double click on my layer. And you guys saw some of this before when we did the digital landscapes, but you can add some different effects. You could add a shadow to your letters. So say I just want to drop shadow, change the color. We'll do blue. You can change the opacity of the shadow as well. You can change the direction. Okay, the distance it is from the letters, the spread, which still keeps a hard edge. You can change the size, which will soften it. All right. So play around with those different things. You could turn that off, play around with outer glow instead. You could try clicking on normal, changing the opacity. Again, your spread and size will change how that looks. So the idea of using these techniques would be to help exaggerate or emphasize your text if it sort of feels like it's blending in too much with your image. You could do an inner glow, you could do an inner shadow. You know, totally up to you guys what you do. You know, and that doesn't really help with visibility here. Stroke would just be an outline. So you could go to outside, and that will just give it a fine line around the whole, all your letters. You can change the thickness of it. It could be really fine. You know, it's up to you. Okay. So I'm just going to hit cancel because I don't really like any of those things. But anyway, let's say you like them, you know, play around. Also, in the, where is it? In this how-to I prepared for you, there are different techniques and tutorials on adding a border, doing different techniques to your fonts. I encourage you to click on these. If you like it, try it, okay? I can't go through every single one though. So that's the basic gist of that. When you are working on this, make sure you go to Save As. Make sure you save it in your Student Network drive. For this one, we want to save it as our last name, cover image, and make sure it's a PSD. By default, because we have the layers here, it will save it as a PSD file, but you want to make sure you save it as your last name, cover image.psd, and this should be in your works in progress folder. Hit save. Okay. If you come back tomorrow and you make all kinds of changes, I would go File, Save As, always, and then just add a 2 next to it. So that's your second version of the same image, okay? That way, if you do something you regret, you can always go back to the original image or the image from the day before. When you're done and you love it, you're going to add final to the end of it instead. Save that as your final. Oops. And then you're going to go to Layer, Flatten Image. And this will put everything in the same layer. Then you will go to File, Save As, and save it as a JPEG. And this should be saved into your Finals folder. Okay. I don't have those folders set up on my laptop, so I'm not going to do that, but that's the basic gist of it. Okay. And all of this is, where'd it go now? Is written out for you right here. Okay. So we're cropping. Make sure it's 11 by 5 by 300. It should look like this when you're in the crop tool. I showed you how to download the fonts from DaFont. Make sure you have your title and name in 2 separate text layers. Save it as a PSD in your works in progress folder. And then when you're all done, add final to the file name, save it in your files folder, flatten it, and then also save it as a JPEG in your files folder. Then you can upload it to Weebly. And that is how to do your cover image. So I encourage you guys to be creative with these. Have fun. There are so many fonts available to you. There are literally, I don't know if there's millions, but there's definitely thousands here. So click around, find something that you like, that matches your style, that matches your work that you've done this marking period, and pick a complementary or contrasting font that will work well with it, and then you are good to go. Okay, thanks.